Listen to me now with the depth of your spirit fully awake, because what you are about to hear is not ordinary speech, not emotional motivation, not human optimism. This is a moment of divine interruption. This is a summons. This is declaration that breaks through time itself and stands before you now, breathing, alive, urgent. God said this will happen between December 23rd, 2025, and the weight of that word is already moving, already pressing, already searching for hearts that can receive it. There are moments when heaven is quiet, and there are moments when heaven speaks. There are seasons when God observes, and there are seasons when God intervenes. This is not a vague promise drifting in the clouds of imagination. This is a fixed moment in divine time. God does not speak carelessly. When God speaks of a time, that time becomes charged with purpose. When God speaks of an event, that event is already forming in the unseen realm. What you hear now is not information, it is preparation. Those who have ears to hear will recognize that something irreversible has been set in motion. Between December 23 and 25, 2025, God said there will be a turning. Not a symbolic turning, not an emotional turning, but a structural turning. Lives that have been locked in cycles will break open. Situations that resisted prayer for years will suddenly yield. Doors that human strength could not move will open without struggle. This is not because people became stronger, but because God decided the time had come. When God decides, resistance collapses. Many of you have been faithful in silence. You trusted God when no one applauded you. You believed when results mocked your faith. You prayed when answers seemed delayed beyond reason. God saw every tear that never fell in public. God recorded every whispered prayer spoken in the night. And God says there is a date on the calendar of eternity when hidden faith becomes visible reward. Do not misunderstand this moment. This is not a reward for perfection. It is a response to persistence. God does not wait for flawless people. God responds to believing hearts. Faith that refuses to die is the language God answers. When everything said stop, you kept going. When everything said quit, you stayed. When logic said it's over, you trusted God anyway. That kind of faith disturbs the heavens. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be a divine exchange. What was carried in secrecy will be released in public. What was sown in pain will be harvested in peace. What was endured in humility will be crowned with authority. This is not poetic language, this is spiritual law. God is a God of seasons, and seasons shift whether people are ready or not. The only question is whether you will recognize the season when it arrives. Some of you are tired in ways sleep cannot fix. You are not exhausted physically, you are weary in hope. You have learned how to function without expecting much, because expecting became painful. God says that survival mode is ending. Between those dates, something will awaken inside you again. Vision will return. Courage will rise. Expectation will breathe again. You will not have to force it. It will come like a sunrise after a long night. God said this will happen not because of human calendars, but because alignment has been completed. There are movements in the unseen realm that take years to settle. There are forces of resistance that exhaust themselves over time. There are prayers that accumulate weight until they break through. You may think nothing has changed, but God says everything has been aligning. What you call delay, God calls development. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said there will be clarity. Confusion will lift. Questions that haunted your mind will suddenly lose their power. You will know what to do without anxiety. You will see what was hidden without strain. God does not lead through chaos. God leads through peace. When clarity comes, fear loses its authority. There are people listening who were told they missed their chance. Circumstances whispered that time ran out. Voices around you suggested it was too late to dream again. God says time obeys divine command. God is not limited by age, history, or past decisions. Between those days, God will demonstrate that destiny does not expire. What was postponed will be revived. What was buried will be called forth. This is not a message for the casual listener. This is for those who have walked through fire without becoming bitter. This is for those who have endured silence without losing faith. This is for those who learn to trust God when understanding failed. God is not about to bless arrogance. God is about to honor surrender. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be restoration that does not look like your past. This is important. Many people want things to return to how they were. God says no. This restoration will be better, stronger, wiser. What returns will not return fragile. It will return fortified. God does not restore to repeat pain. God restores to establish strength. Some of you have been in a long battle with self-doubt. Not because you lack ability, but because you absorbed too many voices that questioned your worth. God says those voices will be silenced. Between those days, you will stand in a confidence that does not come from ego, but from identity. When you know who you are before God, you stop begging the world for permission. God said this will happen. And when God speaks, creation listens. Mountains move, waters part, chains dissolve. You are not waiting for permission from circumstances. Circumstances are waiting for instruction from God. And God has already spoken. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said there will be acceleration. What took years to build will advance rapidly. What moves slowly will suddenly gain momentum. This acceleration will not exhaust you, it will energize you. When God moves you forward, strength rises to meet the demand. You will not burn out in divine timing. Some of you have been faithful with very little, wondering if it mattered. God says faithfulness is never wasted. Every small act of obedience built a foundation. Between those days, God will build visibly on what you quietly maintained. The world celebrates sudden success, but God honors consistent faith. Do not underestimate the power of expectation right now. Faith is not passive. Faith prepares. Faith adjusts its posture. Faith makes room. God is looking for people who will prepare their hearts, not for disappointment, but for fulfillment. If you expect nothing, you may miss everything. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be reconciliation. Relationships fractured by misunderstanding will find healing. Not every connection will return, but the ones that matter will be restored in truth. God is not interested in superficial peace. God brings alignment of hearts. Some of you have carried guilt longer than necessary. You punished yourself even after you changed. God says, release that burden. Condemnation does not come from God. Between those days, you will feel a lifting as if a weight you felt. What you were carrying finally falls away. Freedom is not earned, it is received. God said this will happen, and the timing is precise. Those dates carry spiritual significance because they mark a threshold. You are crossing from endurance into fulfillment, from waiting into witnessing, from believing into seeing. There are dreams you stopped talking about because they felt unrealistic. God says they were not unrealistic, they were premature. Now the season is catching up to the promise. Between December 23 and 2025, you will realize that God never forgot what was spoken over your life. This is not a call to panic. This is a call to align. Align your thoughts. Align your expectations. Align your trust. Fear has no authority in aligned hearts. God does not announce movement to create anxiety. God announces movement to build faith. Some of you will receive answers not through dramatic signs, but through deep peace. You will simply know. God often speaks loudest through stillness. When the noise fades, direction becomes clear. Between those days, God said there will be release of provision, not reckless excess, but sufficient abundance. Needs will be met in unexpected ways. Resources will appear at the right moment. God is not careless with provision. God supplies according to purpose. If you feel a stirring right now, do not ignore it. That stirring is recognition. Truth resonates before it explains itself. Your spirit knows when God is speaking. Between December 23 and 25, 2025, God said this will happen, not because you demanded it, but because God is faithful. Faithfulness is not a reaction, it is God's nature. What God promised, God completes. Stand ready. Stay humble, remain expectant, guard your heart from cynicism. Cynicism is the defense mechanism of wounded hope, but hope healed by God becomes unbreakable. What is coming will not just change circumstances, it will change you. You will walk differently, speak differently, believe differently, not because you are trying to impress, but because you have encountered fulfillment. God said this will happen, and those who receive this word with faith will recognize the moment when it arrives. It will not need explanation. It will carry its own witness. What God is doing now is deeper than external change. God is working at the level of inner structure, dismantling old frameworks that could not sustain what is coming. Many people pray for blessings without realizing that blessings require capacity. God expands capacity before releasing increase. That is why the pressure you felt was not punishment, it was preparation. God was stretching you so that when the moment arrives, you will not collapse under the weight of answered prayer. Between December 20th to 3 and December 25th, 2025, God said, this will happen, and it will feel sudden to those who did not see the process. But you know better. You remember the nights of uncertainty, the seasons of restraint, the moments when God said, wait, even when opportunity knocked. Those restraints were not denial, they were alignment. God closes certain doors, not to frustrate you, but to protect the integrity of what is promised. There are spiritual laws that never fail. One of them is this: whatever God matures in secrecy emerges with authority. You were hidden not because you were insignificant, but because what God was forming needed protection. Exposure too early would have damaged the assignment. Now the season of concealment is ending. Visibility will come without striving. Recognition will follow obedience, not ambition. God is not impressed by noise. God responds to alignment. Loud declarations without inner surrender carry no weight in the unseen realm, but a quiet heart fully yielded to God moves mountains without effort. That is why some of you, though unseen by many, are known in the spiritual realm. God knows your name. God knows your posture. God knows your consistency. Between those days, God said there will be a recalibration of authority. You will no longer negotiate with fear. You will no longer explain yourself to doubt. Authority does not come from domination. It comes from alignment with truth. When you stand where God places you, resistance recognizes limits. Some of you have wondered why certain struggles kept returning even after prayer. God says those cycles were allowed because strength was being built, not because victory was absent. Endurance produces discernment. Discernment produces wisdom. Wisdom produces stability. What is coming requires stability, not excitement. God is establishing you, not entertaining you. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be separation. Not isolation, but distinction. You will notice that some connections no longer fit. Conversations will feel shallow where they once felt familiar. This is not arrogance, it is evolution. God separates, not to make you lonely, but to make you effective. Alignment requires courage to release what no longer serves divine purpose. There is a weight of glory that rests on obedience, not visible glory, but inner authority. When you obey God, even when it costs you comfort, something shifts inside you. Your voice carries clarity. Your decisions carry peace. Your presence carries stability. This is the kind of transformation God is accelerating. God is also addressing generational patterns. Some of you were born into cycles of limitation, fear, or scarcity. You tried to break them through effort alone, but effort cannot break spiritual patterns. God breaks patterns through intervention. Between those days, God said there will be a decisive interruption. What repeated for generations will stop with you. Do not be surprised if old narratives try to resurface before that moment. Resistance often intensifies just before release. That is not failure, it is confirmation. When opposition grows louder, it means something is shifting. Remain steady. God does not rush because of pressure, and God does not retreat because of noise. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be remembrance. You will remember who you were before disappointment taught you to shrink. You will remember what God spoke before the world tried to redefine you. Memory will be restored, not to relive pain, but to reclaim identity. Some of you are called to influence, but influence begins with integrity. God will not elevate character that cannot sustain responsibility. That is why your private decisions mattered so much. Integrity in unseen moments creates credibility in public ones. God is about to trust you with more because you prove faithful with less. God is also healing perception. Many have misinterpreted God's silence as absence. Silence was not absence, it was focus. God was working beyond what you could perceive. Between those days, hindsight will bring understanding. You will see how every delay protected you from premature exposure. There is also a call to release resentment, not because what happened was acceptable, but because resentment anchors you to the past. God is moving you forward, and bitterness cannot follow where God is taking you. Release is not agreement, it is freedom. God cannot pour new wine into hearts holding old poison. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said there will be confirmation. What you sense quietly will be affirmed externally. You will not need to chase validation, it will meet you. God knows how to confirm divine direction without confusion. Some of you will be repositioned, not physically only, but mentally and spiritually. You will see situations from a higher perspective. What once overwhelmed you will no longer intimidate you. Perspective is power. God lifts perspective before changing position. God is also refining speech. Words carry weight in the unseen realm. Casual negativity weakens authority. God is teaching you to speak with intention, not impulse. Between those days, your words will align more naturally with faith. Not because you are forcing positivity, but because truth has settled deeply within you. There will be moments of testing even after release. Do not mistake testing for reversal. Testing reveals strength. God allows testing to show you what has changed. You will respond differently now. You will recover faster. You will stand firmer. That is growth. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said this will happen. And it will mark a before and after. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you become anchored. Storms will come, but they will not define you. Pressure will rise, but it will not crush you. God is calling you to trust without needing constant reassurance. Maturity. Thank you is trusting God even when feelings fluctuate. Faith that depends on emotion is fragile. Faith rooted in truth is unshakable. God is building unshakable faith. Some of you will feel a renewed burden for others. Compassion will deepen. Discernment will sharpen. Influence will expand quietly. God does not elevate for self-glory. God elevates to serve purpose. Between those days, God said, there will be peace that does not depend on circumstances. This peace will guard your mind. Anxiety will lose its grip. Not because life becomes simple, but because trust becomes solid. Remember this, God never announces what God cannot perform. The word spoken carries the power to fulfill itself. Your role is not to force it, but to align with it. Stay receptive, stay obedient, stay humble. What is unfolding is not random, it is intentional. God is intentional. Every step, every pause, every shift has meaning. Even now, as you listen, something is aligning within you. That alignment is preparation. Between December 23 and 2025, God said this will happen. And when it does, you will recognize it not by noise, but by resonance. Your spirit will know. Your heart will be steady. Your steps will be sure. God is faithful beyond your understanding. God is precise beyond human timing. God is present beyond what you feel. Trust that. Hold that. Walk in that. And as the days approach, remain watchful without anxiety, expectant without pressure, faithful without fear. God is not late. God is not confused. God is not distant. God said this will happen. There is another dimension to this moment that must be understood. God is not only changing outcomes, God is redefining standards. What once satisfied you will no longer be enough. What once distracted you will lose its appeal. This is not loss, this is elevation. When God raises your standard, it is because God is raising your assign. Empty, small thinking cannot carry large purpose. God expands vision before expanding territory. Between December 23 and 2025, God said this will happen. And when it does, many will realize that the real miracle was not the external shift, but the internal transformation that made the shift sustainable. God is not interested in temporary breakthroughs that collapse under pressure. God establishes foundations that endure. That is why God has been patient with you, even when you were impatient with yourself. Some of you have wrestled with comparison, measuring your progress against others. God says comparison distorts perception. Destiny is not a race, it is a calling. You are not behind, you are not ahead, you are aligned. God measures obedience, not speed. When you walk in step with God, timing takes care of itself. There is also a call now to deepen reverence. Familiarity can dull awareness. God is restoring awe, not fear, but holy awareness. When you recognize the weight of divine presence in your life, casual compromise loses its attraction. Reverence sharpens discernment. Reverence strengthens resolve. Reverence keeps you grounded when favor increases. Between those days, God said there will be a strengthening of discernment. You will sense what is right without needing excessive explanation. Confusion will no longer linger. God does not leave those who seek truth without guidance. Discernment is not suspicion, it is clarity. It protects you from deception without making you cynical. Some of you are being prepared to carry responsibility that affects others. Leadership is not about position, it is about influence. God is teaching you how to influence without controlling, how to guide without dominating, how to serve without diminishing yourself. True authority reflects the character of God, firm, just, and compassionate. God is also addressing your relationship with time. Anxiety often comes from trying to control what God already governs. Time does not threaten God, and it should not threaten you. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said there will be a release from time-related fear. You will stop racing and start resting. Rest is not inactivity, it is trust. There will be moments when obedience requires courage. Not dramatic courage, but quiet resolve. Saying no when it would be easier to say yes. Waiting when impatience demands action. Standing firm when compromise offers comfort. God sees every one of those decisions. They are building spiritual muscle you will soon rely on. Between those days, God said, there will be alignment between desire and discipline. Many people desire change without discipline to sustain it. God is harmonizing the two within you. What you desire will no longer fight what you practice. Consistency will replace cycles. Stability will replace fluctuation. Some of you have been misunderstood because you outgrew old versions of yourself. Growth often looks like betrayal to those who benefited from your smaller self. God says, do not shrink to preserve comfort for others. Growth is not abandonment, it is obedience. Those meant to walk with you will adjust. God is also restoring joy, not superficial excitement, but deep satisfaction. Joy rooted in purpose, not circumstance. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said laughter will return where heaviness lingered. Creativity will flow where stagnation once ruled. Joy is strength, and God is strengthening you. There is a refinement happening in how you listen. Too many voices dilute clarity. God is teaching you to recognize truth by resonance, not volume. What aligns with God brings peace even when it challenges you. What opposes God creates unrest even when it flatters you. Trust that inner witness. Some of you will be called to let go of control in areas where you have tried to manage outcomes. Control feels safe, but it limits trust. God is inviting you into partnership, not micromanagement. Between those days, surrender will feel less like loss and more like relief. God is also recalibrating your response to opposition. Opposition will no longer provoke panic. It will sharpen focus. You will stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, what is this producing? That shift in question changes everything. Between December 23 and 2025, God said there will be a release of wisdom for decision making. Complex choices will simplify. God does not confuse direction. When the heart is aligned, the path becomes clear. Wisdom is not knowing everything, it is knowing what matters now. There is also a healing of spiritual disappointment. Some of you expected God to move in a certain way, and when it did not happen, you quietly adjusted your expectations downward. God says, lift them again, not recklessly, but faithfully. God is not threatened by your hope. Hope honors God. God is preparing you to steward increase, not just receive it. Increase without stewardship becomes burden. God teaches stewardship before abundance. How you handle peace, time, influence, and resources now determines what you can carry later. Between those days, God said there will be a deeper sense of belonging, not dependence on approval, but confidence in identity. You will know where you stand. You will know whose you are. That knowing stabilizes everything else. Some of you will feel called to speak when you once stayed silent. Others will feel called to be silent where you once reacted. Both require obedience. God speaks through restraint as much as through action. Maturity discerns which is required. God is also reminding you that faith is not denial of reality. It is alignment with truth beyond appearance. You acknowledge what is, but you trust what God said. That tension is where faith lives. Between December 23rd, 2025, that trust will be vindicated. Do not rush to explain what God is doing in you. Some things are understood only through fruit. Let results speak. Let peace testify. Let consistency reveal change. God does not need marketing. God reveals through evidence. As this moment approaches, guard your inner life. What you allow into your thoughts shapes your expectations. Replace worry with reflection. Replace fear with remembrance. Remember what God has already brought you through. That history is proof of faithfulness. God is not asking you to be perfect. God is asking you to be present, attentive, and willing. Willing hearts become vessels of purpose. Resistant hearts remain stuck even when opportunity knocks. Between December 23rd, 2025, God said this will happen. And it will feel like alignment rather than surprise to those who stayed attentive. You will sense that something has settled into place. A weight will lift. A direction will firm. A confidence will root itself deep within you. Stay open. Stay grounded. Stay faithful. God is at work beyond what you can see. And what is coming will require the fullness of who you are becoming. God said this will happen. Now hear this with clarity and courage. Moments like this demand response, not applause. Revelation without response becomes responsibility unmet. God has spoken not to entertain your ears, but to awaken your will. This is the hour to examine the inner posture of your life, to ask yourself honestly where alignment has drifted, where obedience has been delayed, where fear has negotiated space that belongs to trust. God is not asking for perfection. God is calling for surrender that is real, deliberate, and active. Look at your life without excuses and without shame. Shame paralyzes, but truth liberates. God already knows where you struggle, where you hesitate, where you have settled for less than what was possible. The invitation is not to condemn yourself, but to return. Return to clarity, return to reverence, return to the quiet strength of obedience. When you turn toward God with sincerity, distance dissolves instantly. This is the moment to renew purpose, not by adding more activity, but by refining intention. Strip away distractions that drain your focus. Release habits that numb your awareness. Let go of patterns that keep you spiritually busy but inwardly stagnant. God is not impressed by motion without direction. God honors hearts that move with intention and humility. Draw closer to God not through noise but through attentiveness. Listen more deeply, reflect more honestly, obey more promptly, trust more fully. Nearness to God is not measured by words spoken but by lives aligned. When your choices begin to reflect trust, you will feel strength rise from within, steady and unshakable. Stand up in your inner life. Take responsibility for your faith. Stop outsourcing conviction to circumstances. Stop postponing obedience until conditions feel ideal. God meets those who move forward with reverence and resolve. Courage does not wait for certainty, it moves in trust. Let your life become an answer to what God has spoken. Let integrity guard your steps. Let humility shape your influence. Let faith steady your heart when pressure comes. Walk forward knowing that God goes before you, not as a distant observer, but as the source of your strength and direction. Carry this word not as a prediction, but as a calling. Live awake, live aligned, live faithful. Let your days reflect trust, your decisions reflect obedience, and your heart reflect reverence. God is near to those who draw near, faithful to those who trust, and powerful in those who yield.